Hey everybody, welcome back to Two Comma Coffee Club. I'm Lene and I'm here with Valerie and Michelle, of course. And today we have a special guest, Tony, and he is a business coach, a leadership coach. He coaches executives. And what's unique about him is he uses Neville Goddard's teachings to kind of leverage his coaching and bring that unique aspect. So that is really awesome, and I'd love to hear more about that. So welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You're welcome anytime, Tony. Tell us first, how did you get into Neville, Tony?
A long, convoluted story. Basically, I'm a seeker. I've always been a seeker. So I've always studied different religions, spirituality in general, philosophy, those type of things. It's always been an interest to me. So I've run across Neville several times over the last 15, 20 years of study, through all my high school philosophy classes and through college and all of that. But the funny thing is, I studied so much religion that I realized for me that religion was very limiting. So when Neville started bringing up Bible things, it would turn me off instantly. And as you know, a lot of his stuff, he uses Bible as a bridge to help religious folks, kind of bridge out more into spirituality and show them those things. But so it turned me off a lot, So every time I would get into him and I agree with a lot of his stuff, he would start bringing up Bible things. And it was a block for me for a long time, So, but interestingly enough, I've got a long, convoluted story that runs through Wayne Dyer that led me back to Neville. And then on his passing, I kind of went back into those things because he was my personal mentor. So a lot of
you mean Wayne Dyer? Excuse me, Wayne Dyer was your personal mentor, is what you're saying?
Yeah. So I worked with Wayne Dyer for 8 months before he passed away.
Wow.
As you guys know, I think I work with Hay House, I work with Mind Valley, I work with Ted. So I have a lot of partnerships with programs like that, but it really started with Hay House. And that's an interesting story we can go into if you want to really delve into how I switched over from being strictly business minded to kind of more spiritual, and then merged them later on again, because I did a 360 and then another, and it's been an interesting path, I'll say that. But
I think given that Louise Hay is like the godmother of so much of this personal transformational work, when she wrote, when she came out with her first book about You Can Heal Your Life, I think it was called, and her other books, and that she has been herself she lived to be about 92, 93 years old, and she was almost till the end. She was a huge influence on the direction of this kind of work. So I think a lot of people have got their first taste of what this is about from her, or it was certainly an important adjunct, feed into their growth. I mean, pretty much any, most people you'll see has a copy of that book on their shelf,
Yeah. I would say definitely the self-love piece, especially. Like, there's no one who teaches or does self-love practices that do not practice Louise Hay. So we call her Grandma Lulu. I've been to her house many times in LA before she passed. It was a super sad day. I flew out for the funeral. All the younger writers, she wanted them to call her Grandma Lulu. So when she got to be about 80, she was everybody's grandma, at least at Hay House.
That's sweet. So you work with, and Wayne was one of her top she was a mentor, I guess, to Wayne. But I mean, you know, she kind of came in a little after Neville's era. I mean, she was contemporary with Neville at a certain point, Louise. They were around at the same time, but then she was around a lot longer. But Wayne Dyer, who I think also studied with Neville, but he was almost like a protege of Louise, was he not, to some extent?
Not really. So Dr. Dyer had his own path to all of this stuff. He actually studied Eastern philosophy, and he was a licensed therapist. So that was his path. So he was doing therapy one-on-one with clients, but he would bring in this Eastern philosophy from Lao Tzu. He learned about Neville, and more Neville started influencing what he was doing with his clients. And then, you know, he started doing programs for PBS, which really is what made him famous, because he was on TV, you know, at least once or twice a year on public broadcasting, so people could get it. They didn't have to pay for the programs or anything like that. And that made his books really catapult his success. Now, he did publish a couple books before Louise started Hay House. Once she started, he was the first writer that she wanted to go for. So he was the #1 author at Hay House for over 20 years. So everybody else was kind of adjuncts too, but when Wayne wrote a book, it was all hands on deck for Wayne's book. All hands, no matter who you were, including, I mean, the CEO and Louise was not the CEO, just so you know. She started Hay House, but she knew that she didn't know the publishing game. Reed Tracy is the CEO at Hay House, and he's been there forever. Like he is, he's the nicest guy. But he and Wayne were almost best friends. Like if anyone was a mentor, at least on the business side, it was Reed. And of course, Louise, like I said, she was ever present, and her spirit, you know what I mean? Even when she was alive, like I would say, her spirit still, it's Hay House, you know what I mean? It's Louise's, you know, her affirmations go through the halls just in your head. You don't have to see them, hear them, or read them. It kind of is what it is. It's its own special place. And, you know, it's not just a publishing house. It's really its own entity. It's its own kind of a holistic healing thing, you know.
So for you, I mean, but the way you've worked with them, were you planning to be like a coach, you know, kind of under their wing, or were you more on the business model side? What was your connection, or was it more through that you were studying with Wayne Dyer or you know?
Right. So initially, okay, we'll get into the long story of it. Initially, I was introduced to them. I was already doing lots of business things and thinking about switching over to coaching. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had recording contracts for 25 years. I do graphic design. I've owned several businesses, recording studios, those type of things. I've traveled the world, done all those things previous to this. I was dating a girl who was writing a book for Hay House. Okay. So she was writing a book. This is in probably early 2014. They had a writer's workshop on Maui. So I was her guest, flew to this writing workshop because I wanted to go to Hawaii, right? And if you guys know anything about me, I'm always getting other people to pay for my trips. That's my end. You know what I mean? That's one of the things that I have.
That's manifesting right there. So
absolutely. And totally, I've always
what is the state, and what is the state you're manifesting, you're occupying to manifest that from? Entrepreneurial state of wealth creator, entrepreneur, traveler, or
yeah, absolutely. So my desire has always been to be a world traveler from the time I was a little kid. You know, we never got to go on vacation. My parents never had a lot of money. My dad was an entrepreneur, which is where I got that seed. But he was one of those, you have to work 100 hours a week, you know what I mean? So he was a workaholic, never had time to take off to go to vacation, something like that. So I always had a desire to do those things. So once, and this is pre-Neville, I mean, I was manifesting all this stuff as we all do all the time. You know what I mean? We just don't really know how we're doing it, or stop, slow down enough to go inside and realize that we are doing it. But yeah, so I've always done that. And the 2 years before COVID, I took 12 vacations a year, all paid for by other organizations. So I would go every single month. It was scheduled on the thing. I would have a four-day weekend trip somewhere, wherever, you know what I mean? And it would be paid for by either Hay House, Mind Valley, TED, or, sometimes we did private workshops. Like we've done lots of stuff in Las Vegas and New York and places like that as well. But it was always paid for. I'd do half-day teaching, and then I'd have 3.5 days of vacation, So I've always been able to manifest that, and it's because it's a deep desire. I've always wanted to see other places, other countries, other states, locations. But
yeah, have you been yet to Australia to see 20, or that's something?
Oh, it's in the plans.
It's in the plans.
Yeah, 20 and I have been planning it, but COVID got in the way, or it would have already happened for sure. So,
yeah.
Just to finish my Wayne Dyer thing real quick. So I manifested my way to Hawaii for what I thought would be a vacation. Okay, ends up this isn't, for the Neville audience out there, this was a bridge of incidents to something way bigger, right? So we go to this thing. I kind of half-heartedly attend the writer's workshop because we're there for her. She's meeting and greeting and doing all the things. She introduced me to Reed. She introduced me to Wayne. She introduced me to Louise. Several other the early writers who were there, like James Von Frog, a bunch of people that were on the early Hay House roster. Just so happens that Wayne Dyer had an estate on Maui. So we hit it off like immediately, and I ended up being in a little 10 group person who were invited back to his estate to talk more about things. And it got so intense and personal, and it just reignited all of those years of me being a seeker. And if you go anything about Wayne Dyer's work, Neville was his number one mentor, but he also had Lao Tzu, and he also had so many different influences, and he would pull these things together just like me, you know what I mean? And I never knew someone who was like that, because I was just doing what felt right. So we clicked immediately. He was like my, the same person as me, but 50 years older, So he had so much wisdom. And so it was awesome. We clicked. At that time, I didn't know that he was kind of struggling with a cancer diagnosis. Like, he didn't let that out for a long time, but he agreed to take me on as a mentee. So he became my mentor, and now we would call it a coach. But yeah, so I would check in with him weekly for about 8 months until he really got too sick to do it. And then he gave me to one of his friends. He referred me off to a business mentor named Robin Sharma, and I became Robin Sharma's mentee, I guess. So
wow.
But that's the interesting thing. But in dealing with Wayne, like I said, not only all the Hay House authors, so we're talking Joe Dispenza came on during that time, like so many people, but also he introduced me to Abraham Hicks. So I had known, obviously, Abraham Hicks via videos, right? But I never met Jerry and Esther, which I got a chance to meet Jerry and Esther because they were published through Hay House. So I was introduced to them. Just so many different people that would play a huge part in my spiritual evolution. And there was a time when Abraham Hicks was my main thing. Like I would listen to 2 or 3 of those videos a day, and I would travel to the live workshop. I've been to 7 Abraham Hicks workshops. So like literally there was a 2 or 3 year period there after Wayne had died where that was my spiritual connection. Like I was going through all of that. I was gleaning up all that law of attraction things. And then once I started really looking at Wayne's work, which I always kept top of mind because, like I said, he's my number one mentor. He informed everything I do. So I went back and I really saw how many books he wrote about Neville. You know, he talks about Neville in every book, and 2 of the books are actual Neville breakdowns for the common people. You know what I mean? So,
do you remember? Would you know the titles offhand of those particular books? Because there's so many people who follow us who are, you know, if it's Neville based or Neville connected, they'll want to know. But we can find it somewhere in his.
Well, the one I always suggest first is go to I Can See Clearly Now. Mm-hmm. That was the last book he published, I Can See Clearly Now, and he really sums up his whole life and how much Neville meant to him. Mm-hmm. Like when you went back and looked, you know, and then like I said, he brought it into all of his things, but that's his memoir, and luckily he published that. That was the book he had right when we went to the last writer's workshop. That was published in February of 2015, and our writer's workshop was at the end of 2014. So that was the one he was pushing right then. That was why Reed was on, you know, he was the keynote speaker because that book was getting ready to come out. And really it's a summation of all the stuff he had done and just how much Neville played into his spiritual evolution. So I would definitely start there, but all of his books are Neville influenced. And they're, I mean, he's the same. Like he's not somebody who's shy to say, Neville said, you know what I mean? Kind of like how Neville quotes Blake. That's how Dr. Dyer quotes Neville. So.
Yeah. That's just, but at that point, but we're still kind of on this place in your timeline with your career, your profession, but you hadn't seen yourself as a coach in your own right at that point. You're still kind of under the wing of Wayne and later Robin and taking all this in. But where was your particular shift, Tony?
So all that was going on at the same time. Okay. So under Wayne, he really thought I should write a book. He looked at me as a junior version of him. We have all the same influences, and you know, and he thought with my urban background, like urban music and my tie to the streets, that this would be a great way, because his whole thing was about digesting these masters and putting them out for the masters. That's his thing. So that's his whole mission in life. And he thought for sure, I mean, that's what he wanted me to do. So we started working on that. So Hay House actually owns 2 of my manuscripts right now that they can choose to publish anytime they want. They bought both of them. And so we'll see about that. I don't know if you guys have ever gone the traditional publishing route as opposed to the self-publishing, but it's a long, convoluted, especially when you're dealing with a big, huge conglomerate like Hay House. But anyway, so I have manuscripts held with Hay House right now, 2 of them that they've already bought. So that's a possibility. But at the same time, I had also started taking programs with Mind Valley. Once again, you know, I'm a seeker. So and for your listeners who aren't familiar with Mind Valley is the #1 online personal development program company, right? So I was taking programs with them, you know, and they have famous authors and like Marissa Peer, who do a lot of therapy type.
I've got Marissa Peer, and I've got her book as well.
Right. So I was working with them. Lisa Nichols. You guys know who Lisa Nichols is?
Yes.
So
highly motivational speaker.
Love
coach.
her.
Yeah.
Absolutely. She would say inspirational. She would be mad if she called her motivational.
Inspirational, absolutely.
Yeah. So I was taking all these programs with them, attending their live programs as well. And then I contacted them about something for the Midwest. I live in the Midwest of the U.S., right? So Indiana. which is, you know, smack dab in the middle. So I contacted them about bringing someone to Indianapolis. They were all for it. I have tons of connections. Like I said, I've been a business person for, you know, many years by this point already. So I was able to bring Lisa Nichols to Indianapolis for a program.
Right.
So I facilitated that program live for her, you know, and did some introductory stuff and was the host and all of those things. Super successful. And that parlayed its way into an offer to be a facilitator for Mind Valley for other things. So then I started working with the CEO, his name is Vishen, about doing this because he had a big vision about spreading this out throughout the world, but specifically the U.S., so more people could digest it, right? So I started helping with that in a facilitator role, which is what I still am with Mind Valley right now. I'm considered a master facilitator. So the good thing about getting hired on to do those things is I also got offered when they went to Sardinia, Italy, to do A-Fest, which is one of the big festivals they do. And when they went to Estonia, I got to go to there for, you know, for the big program there. So I became a facilitator, working with all of their authors and things, and I got to start doing training on my own. So I'm doing training for Mind Valley at live events. You know, thousands of people are getting to know me. You know, when we do like an A-Fest, you're talking 30,000 people, you know. And when we do Mind Valley University, you're talking 60,000 people that come in for a whole month. Mm-hmm. Like literally it's the whole summer, you know. Pre-COVID, obviously. We haven't got back to that yet. But so that was super fun for me. And like I said, at the same time, I was thinking about switching over to being a coach, because at that time, all it was, although I was still signed as a recording artist, I was no longer touring because I got off tour when I had kids. So I didn't want to be away from home. I mean, I was gone. I had no home for 18 months. I was on tour steadily for 18 months with no place to come back to. And then once I started having kids, I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. So I started doing businesses, and you guys know I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I've got 7 different businesses and a nonprofit right now. But I really always had this desire to help people, right? So I was also attending a university at the same time I was doing the Mind Valley, at the same time I was doing the Hay House, right? So I went and did some nonprofit management work at a university. This is before I started my own nonprofit, and from that I did start my nonprofit. But all these things kept leading me more to a unique way to coach other people, other entrepreneurs, other business leaders, right? Leaders in all types of different industries. Because of my seeker background, my spiritual, you know, foundation, my business, both experience and the degrees that I had in nonprofit and for-profit business administration. Like I had all these different elements that could really help me. So I started really seriously thinking about being a coach. Mind Valley at that exact time, bridge where I manifested it, we'll see. Right?
Like such thing as a coincidence.
Mind Valley started a division called Ever Coach. So I've been there since about day 3, not day 1, but day 3. Vishen's partner in that is Ajit Nawalka. And his vision was to get 1 million trainers, coaches, and facilitators. So all the facilitation team moved over to him. As well, he started training coaches and all these other things. And so natural progression, like I got certified as coach, I'm certified as a master facilitator. And I have all these different elements that all come together, you know, and it just happens that TED seems to really like that. They've asked me to do 2 separate TEDx talks and on different subjects. But you know me, I always try to weave in some spirituality and Neville into all of those things.
Yeah, TEDx is a cool offshoot of the original TED. But by the way, a lot of people may not even know what TED stands for. It's not like someone's nickname. It's a nickname. It's technology, entertainment, design.
Right.
And years ago, I had the good fortune to write an article about Richard Saul Wurman, who was one of the founders of the original TED. So he's a designer. He may still be around. I don't know. It was back in New York a long time ago. And it was from that. And he had written a book called Information Anxiety. So which was a very interesting book at that time, especially at that time with the emergence of technology into people's daily lives. And the fact that this is a society where people are afraid to fail. They're afraid to have the wrong answer. This is how they start off in school. They don't want to be seen as not knowing something, so then they don't contribute. So he really understood the need to open that up for people. So where you're fitting into that, at the TEDx, that has moved out exponentially, I guess you could say, the X, that has moved more into the communities so that more and more people locally have a chance. It's not just the biggest names, the top tier that everybody would go to, like a Deepak Chopra or somebody like that, or Elizabeth Gilbert. They're going to find more people. So it's a really fantastic way that the whole thing has expanded over time to get more people connected.
Yeah. And in fact, they've changed the business model completely. You have to do at least 3 TEDx's before you get invited to a main stage.
So you get practice, you get an audience, you get practice. It's a great experience.
Yeah, it's awesome. I like it a lot. So it's just
great.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome and very interesting to me to dissect how all these things come together in our lives, these little desires that we have, how they all bridge and connect into each other.
Well, that's right, because if you think about it, if we look at it from a manifesting perspective, and we're in a society where we're afraid to fail, that's because of how we imagine we are, that we don't have the capacity to make this happen. So if we shifts, it's because of the state. So now we understand how this comes from our state. So when you start to see it from the perspective of changing your state so that you can achieve these things, it's a huge shift.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I have to give that part to 20. Like, even though I know you guys are 20s mentees as well, but for me, even though I was reintroduced to Neville and all of that through Dr. Dyer, and I had all this convoluted experience, which I believe gave me a really good foundation. The trouble I had was I had too many convoluted experiences, muddy in the waters, right? Which is where I think most people are, right? So
well, hold on. But why do you say that they were convoluted? Were they conflicting?
Of course, just like 20 teaches us, and 20 is the one that taught me that, because here's what we do, and here's how I became successful, right? I take what resonates with me from all different pieces of spirituality, you know what I mean? So you've got some law of attraction in there, some other new age, some Christianity, some Buddhist, some, you know what I mean? You've got all these pieces in there, and it works because it feels good. And so to a certain level, you're great, right?
Spirituality salad, right? We all make our own.
Exactly. Right? So it will feed you a lot, and it gets you out of the war mentality. So if you look at things like War Game Dance, right? It gets you from the war where you think the world's against you to the game where you're a creator and you're playing it, right? But the problem is, and this is what 20 helped me with, when you have all those different things and you don't buy the pearl, right? You don't buy the pearl and start getting rid of all of these other things that you're giving power to outside of yourself. When you don't do that, you can't level up. So, because you're always trying to take more inputs. Like, that's what got you there. So you feel like, and this is how I help CEOs go from 5 million to 20 million. And I've done 5 different companies this way now. But they don't understand that because they're used to, just like I was, they're used to taking all these great resources and putting them all in, you know what I mean? Like you said, it's the salad, you know? So they don't even look at it as a spiritual practice. They're looking at it, you know, as the best case practices. You know, you're told to do that in business school. You take best case of all these different scenarios and put them together, right? The problem is if you don't get to a point where different, right, where you start weeding out things, then you're always taking in things and you can't ever get over that initial hump. You know, you can't ever get past a certain level. You make yourself a glass ceiling.
Right. And I know that for all of us coffee girls here, that you know, we all are seeing that because we've often, you know, talked on our show about all the things we have left behind us that we came through. I know with Michelle, she and I have had very similar because of things in spirituality, from, you know, Reiki, tarot, other kinds of energy healing that have, you know, that we were all very enamored about. But then we got into Neville, and I know with Lene is on the verge of doing a lot of coaching and a lot of, you've got to, you know, Lene has a workshop, and you did Board Game Dance, if I'm, you know, not telling tales here, but I think you know that program of 20s, and you're doing a level up breakthrough workshop that you're offering right after, in the July, I think it is, after we do the Neville Summit. So anything you want to, Lene, you want to jump in a little bit about some of that?
Oh no, I have many projects juggling in the air. So there's a lot, but yeah, it took it kind of like what you said, like when you finally were like, I've been piecing together all these things all these years, and then like, oh yeah, it's me, you know, it's been me. Right. And then that takes you further, because then you're like, well, if anything's in my way, it's clearly me.
Right.
No more excuses to that. So that's been the most freeing aspect of all of this, and why I like Neville, because it's about, just because we're all searching for that empowerment, right? But people start clinging to people for that empowerment, but it just brings it back to you. You empower you, and then you can get the fuck out of your way, or you can get in your way, right? Your choice. Which one are you gonna do? So right. Yeah, so I actually have a event coming up that is with Sports Illustrated. That's coming up, and that's exciting because, kind of like you were talking about, like doors are opening because I've stepped it up a notch, right? And then I have I'm working with veterans, because I'm a female veteran myself, and that was a need I saw. And that's where like the leadership and stuff comes from that I was talking about earlier. Because there's a lot of toxic leadership in the military. And I actually just dropped a video yesterday on my Yellow Star Life channel, where we talked a little bit about that toxic leadership and trying to break that away from people. And, you know, let's talk about how we're going to be productive with this and not, you know, carry that on. So yeah, like it's, there's just been a lot going on, but yeah, it took me getting the hell out of my way, and that empowerment from me, boom.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. The military still has a very old style of leadership, you know, top-down type of leadership. And you find that sometimes in businesses, a lot of older CEOs still try to run things like that. But the good thing is that paradigm had shifted 20 years ago. So most boards know that it's about consciousness and creativity, empowering people for self-leadership and those type of things. So usually when I go into a company, that stuff is in place. Sometimes I still have to do company culture, And a lot of times that's what they want me to do because they want to appeal to a younger audience, a more diverse, broader audience. So I find myself doing a lot of company culture type of activities, and empowering like lower level management to do more things. You know, some CEOs still put a lot of yes men around them, similar to like the military, where it's built like that. You know, they want to know that they're right, and they get, you know, they get their ego stroked, so they put the people that, you know, agree with them in there. Unfortunately, that's not good for a business or a life, right?
So something interesting, just based on that, is this this little culture we're having right now where people are not wanting to get back to work, and you have managers and managers above the managers who are getting very frustrated because they're not able to hire people. I mean, you can drive down here. I'm in Texas, by the way. Drive down the road and every sign has a now hiring. And then you see all these articles online about people aren't wanting to get back to work. And I mean, they try to associate it with, well, people are getting paid more on unemployment, but I don't think that's the issue. I think this whole thing like woke people up. So I'd be interested in your take in how, say you had a manager come to you, like, what do I do? How do I get my people motivated to be here? And, you know, if that's something like up your alley of like what you would help with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we deal with that. In the last year, that's probably one of the biggest things we're dealing with, you know, as different areas come out of the COVID thing. So really that's a piece of the company culture that we were talking about before, because old paradigms are gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, people have been able to work from home. People have been getting paid to work from home. Yeah. People know that they can watch their kids at the same time as they're doing something, and
unemployment is paying you better or comparable to like what McDonald's is paying. You know, it's like maybe a difference of about $25. You can stay home and do the same thing, you know, and stay home and make the same money as long as they keep offering that, you know, emergency pay.
Right. So if we're talking about entry level positions, you're completely right, Valerie. So for companies that have a lot of minimum wage employees, that is actually an issue. But how you can compete with that, and how I teach them to compete with that, is to embrace, right? Embrace what it is. So first of all, you have to find out what it is the employee really wants. No matter, you know, what level you're hiring at. What does the employee want to get out of the relationship with the business?
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and different people want different things. Some people just want money, right? They're going to work for money. That's the war mentality. I need this to support my family.
Right.
Over 90% of the world is in that, you know. But like Lene was saying, I mean, a lot of people got woke up to other options during this time. A lot of new businesses have started.
Philosophy drives technology.
There you go.
Exactly. I'm not, you know, why should I come back? I can do this work from home. I'm near the refrigerator. The cats are happy, or maybe they're not so happy. The dogs are happy, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like they're starting to wake up to what, like you say, philosophy drives technology. It's what is going to happen. And the other thing, you know, we were starting to say is, we were talking about the spirituality salad. You know, all this stuff we get tossed around with all this stuff. Now you're showing how to get from, is when you suddenly go, wait a minute, it's not the salad anymore. I'm the main ingredient. I'm the main course.
Right.
This is it. I'm the whole menu. Now, you know, so at that point, we were talking about where you were with that, just to get back to that for a second. At what point does 20 enter the picture for you? Because you've had this amazing career that's had all these, you know, turns and developments. Like you say, it's convoluted, your checkered past, but your convoluted career, as you see it, from which you are emerging into this new place. But of course, we know, you've got things going on with 20 and you've known him for a while. You were already in the group for a while. How did you actually connect with him? And what was the change for you when you encountered working with 20 and his way of coaching, or not coaching because he doesn't consider himself a coach, but mentoring or befriending us with Neville?
Yeah. So it's funny. It went really fast, quicker than anything else. And that's kind of how I knew it was something special, right? Something real. Like I said, I had been reintroduced, and I had myself wanted to refocus on Dr. Dyer and his influences, because to that point, that was the biggest influence in my life, right? So I went back to those, got reintroduced to Neville. Still had a little bit of issue with the Bible stuff, and so I was kind of like, what's going on with that stuff? Happened on a lecture where he was talking about that it wasn't meant to be word for word, right? That it was a metaphysical document, right? Not a history. So that got me really interested, because to that point I hadn't heard it, I just hadn't done enough. I got turned off every time I saw it, and I didn't get into it enough to realize that he was using it as a bridge to other religions to come to the realization of who they are personally themselves, right? So once I did that, I specifically went on the internet to find more. So I started listening to more and more Neville things, and I started getting into it. In the meantime, while I was searching for that, what popped up, but
freeneville.com. Right?
Standing out in a garden, broadcasting, talking about Neville, but just laughing and watching at first just a dog, and 20 driving around in a car on Tickle Belly Hill, and and then later on broadcasting from a hot tub, and just all these real life things that really brought it down to earth, right? Really centered it for me, because you guys know, but everybody may not. 20 uses personal experiences only, right? Just like Neville did. Neville used his personal experiences, but everyone can't relate with Neville, right? To begin with, especially, right? But 2020, here's this guy who's, similar in age range to us. He's got a wife. He's got, he's a doggy parent, and he does the same things that we do. And slowly but surely, I would want to tune into these videos, especially on Thursdays in the U.S., because Thursdays in the U.S. is your manifesting questions answered live. So for 4 weeks straight, I made sure I would move any business thing I had around to make sure I could watch that hour.
And about how long ago was this?
This was about 2 years ago.
Okay, because I came in started getting in contact with 20, emailing questions and stuff in 2017. Mm-hmm. So with you, it's only since about 2019, maybe.
That's what. Wow. That's what I said. It was fast. It was pre-pandemic, but not much, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, when I look back on it, so it took me about 4 weeks. Like I said, I caught every single one of those manifesting questions answered live. I was doing other Neville things, and slowly but surely, I was focusing on Neville. Not even consciously, but just literally, it was weeding itself down. Abraham Hicks was old hash. You know what I mean? Let's see what Neville had to say about that. And then I would, go to the website and look up what Neville said about the same things. Where things were congruent and
I did the same thing. I did exactly the same.
So, and that's what I was talking about before. So at some point, you're taking all these inputs in and you're looking for commonalities, right? You're like, oh, this agrees with that, and that agrees with that, and I really think that's how That's a
It's
great
not
way to
for
get
you
to the
be
game
able
stage.
to understand and comprehend it, because it's only through your experience that you learn, and you have to take those experiences to help you move on to the next one.
Absolutely. So if you like see the memes that I do, right? I do at least one Neville every single day. You know, I created all of these from scratch because I love doing graphic design. But I also always do other people that people may be more into already. So I'm using that commonality thread. So if one person says something about imagination, and then I put a Neville one after that a half an hour later, maybe they'll be interested in finding more about what Neville sees. So there's a use for that commonality. But at some point, and what 20 helped me do was really start pruning, right? Pruning the vine, right? Start looking for not the similarities, but the differences. Like where, you know, what do I not need, right? What's the weight I'm holding on to that, you know, that I could get rid of because it comes with things, you know. You bring Abraham Hicks and there's 4 great things, and it also adds in, you know, affirmations, you know, whatever, you know, sticky tape and, you know, that 20 would say, you know, and vision boards and all that.
Vision boards, right.
Bring in Eckhart Tolle, and he's awesome. He's great about, you know, God is within and all that, but he's completely 100%, you know, about meditation. And I'm into meditation, but I'm into meditation because that helps me get into me, right? So everybody that's in Eckhart Tolle doesn't get that part yet, but they like Eckhart Tolle or Sadhguru, right? And I was just, I had an awesome experience to be able to facilitate a Mind Valley event with Sadhguru. You know, 3,500 people live on Zoom with Sadhguru, and he's amazing. Like his inner consciousness stuff is so lined up with Neville, but it also comes with a lot of other Eastern philosophy things that don't completely line up. You know, that's a lot of about the culture of the time and the politics, right? They get convoluted and brought into these things. So at some point, it's about pruning the vine, and 20 helped me do that so clearly. Like I said, it took about 4 weeks. I immediately signed up for Manifesting Mastery, which is his intro course for those who haven't taken it.
It's the self-paced 90-day course.
Yes, life-changing.
We can all agree on that. Right?
The other good thing about Manifesting Mastery, it is self-paced, but what it forced me to do, because it didn't have a community of its own, was to get more into 20's community.
Into the Law of Attraction Neville Goddard group.
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So I got more into there because I'm from Mind Valley. We have a community for every program so that you can, you know, talk about common experiences. So I'm used to doing that. You know, I'm used to facilitating those communities. There was no community for Manifesting Mastery. So the closest thing there was to get more into the Law of Attraction by Neville Goddard group, you know, which is facilitated by 20, and he has all these other admins that are awesome. They're also on the shows. So then I went from the Thursday show to the daily show, right? So then I was on there every single day for all the time I'm through Manifesting Mastery. Manifesting Mastery was awesome. It helped me, business-wise, it helped me double my income just off the top by freeing me up. What it didn't help me do was work half the time. And this is one of 20's big things, right? Double your income and work half the time. So I got to the end of that, and I was working about 80 hours a week, and I had went from 65,000 to 150,000 a year, and I was living high, but I was working a lot of hours to do it, right? So, and you see how many things I've started. So it's easy to work a lot of hours when it's there. If I don't hire somebody else to do it, it falls on me. So 20 really helped me. And like I said, this has been fast. You know, it's been just a little over 2 years. But I immediately went for Manifesting Mastery. He was closing the doors. I wasn't even done with Manifesting Mastery, and I signed up for the next program, which was also awesome.
Were you in Dream? Was that Dream Driven Day, or was it?
Was Dream Driven Day.
Yeah, Dream Driven Day.
Dream Driven Day was the biggest shift for me. But if it weren't for Manifesting Mastery, I would never have been ready for Dream Driven Day.
No, you have to do MM first.
Yeah, Manifesting Mastery opened up, and just the part about just the first 3 lessons really about how much you're already assuming and filling your life with busyness, and where you can start weeding those things out to make more room for fun things that you want to do. That is amazing. But when I got to Dream Driven Day, and I was able to chunk down to daily experiences, planning out the actual day, which bringing back in the things that I already coach on, but really bringing a lot more of a spiritual basis to it, right? This is not just tactics and strategies of, this is great, appreciate something in the morning and plan out what you want to do, set your intentions, normal coaching type of things. He gave it a real spiritual basis, right? And it works, you know what I mean? So that's the thing with 20s programs. If you do them, they work, period. And the good thing about Dream Driven Day comes with community. So I was able to go through Dream Driven Day, with this small group, 30 people, have live calls. Got introduced to the live calls before, but I had purchased War Game Dance and some of the others, and I'm like, wow, these live calls are awesome. I can't wait to be a part of that. So I got to do that with Dream Driven Day. Before I even finished Dream Driven Day, I had already cut back my work week to 40 hours. I now work 30 hours. So at that point, I had doubled my income and worked half the time. So by the end of that second program, I had done that. But before the end of that program, he invited me to the club. And for anybody who has not gone to the part of being in the club is mind-blowing.
It is, right? Yeah.
So after Dream Driven Day, he'll invite you into the club calls, and it's so well worth it. These are all live calls. They're all facilitated by 20 and a really, really small group of select people that have been through the program. So there's a nice common basis, Neville basis for everybody. Unlike Manifesting Mastery, who's still a lot of law of attraction people, people who are exploring Neville, right? But the club is even furthermore changed my life, especially on the business side, because I went into it like, how can I, you know what I mean? I don't want to work this many hours, and I want to do more. I want to make more impact in the world, right? At the same time, I love doing these trips. I love doing all this stuff, right? So at the end of that, I was able to double my income again and reduce my work week another 10 hours. So, I right around 250, and this is during the pandemic, right? So now I'm around 250,000 a year. I work 30 hours a week. I haven't been able to do all the trips that I want to do because of the COVID restrictions, but that's back on the table. Mind Valley's starting up their things in the fourth quarter of this year. So we'll see how those things go. International travel is still real iffy, but we're going to try it. We're going to see. But it's just interesting how quick it went. And in the process of that, let me just tell you some of the other things. Because life is not all roses, right? Things happen. My mom died right at the beginning of Dream Driven Day. And literally it took me 3 days to process. Not that I didn't process, literally it was like, so glad she's not suffering it. You know what I mean? Like my mindset was so shifted by the time I had gotten to that point. Like I was able to send her affairs in order, help everybody else in my family, and moving straight on. I build a business. You know what I mean? I'm doing life things, right? I'm having dream-driven days, which lead into dream-driven weeks and dream-driven months and years. And, the program really works for me. That's my personal experience. And so it's been amazing. Like I said, so I've got a long Neville trip, but the last 2 years have certainly been more focused, and it happened because I weeded out the other things, like a lot of the other things, right? So, and I still play that line between, because as a coach, like I said, I like to invite people who are Rumi fans into the teachings of Neville through commonalities, and then we can start working on the other things. So,
yeah. The point is, for people that are watching, because this is a Neville Goddard Summit special, and it's pre-summit, it's next weekend. What people need to understand is that when it comes to manifesting, between us four, we've probably experienced all there is to offer pre-Neville Goddard. But when you get to Neville Goddard, it is the fastest, simplest and shortest route to live in the end of your desire. It's the only, for me, everything was the spiritual salad, and some conflicted and some sort of got there but finished halfway. When you have the teachings of Neville Goddard, and the way 20 teaches them is kind of like present day Neville Goddard for how we understand it. When you look at when Neville was teaching it, it was different. People looked at him in a different way. What 20 does is he takes those teachings and he plonks them in the present day for us to comprehend into our daily life now. And so when people are after, people are seeking, people want something, what we're telling them is you won't need anything else after this, because Neville teaches the end. And so everybody that is going to be in that summit wants the audience to live in their end quickly, simply and totally easily, without any conflicts, because you don't need any conflict. There is no what's ifs, buts, maybes. Oh, could I do this? It's so simple about how you live in the end, and it's the most direct route for people to live the life that they've only dreamt of.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
So,
but that.
Sorry, go on, Val.
No, please go ahead. No,
I was just going to talk about the summit just quickly, because we've been going for talking for an hour now.
Yeah.
I just wanted Tony to home in on what he's going to be doing in the summit and what he's going to cover.
Sure. So my session is creative, conscious leadership. Coming from where I come from, obviously, like I said, I coach leadership teams and executives. But I'm presenting leadership, which could be self-leadership, right? It could be your own personal leadership. It could be leading a family. It could be leading a community organization, a nonprofit, or it could be a business. You know, leadership is involved in all of those things, and it ties really nicely into what you were just talking about, because, and in the end, it's you, right? So everything is you radiating out. You know, and we talk about that a lot in, upper level 20 programs. It's so everything spurs from you. And sometimes CEOs get that innately because a lot of businesses are set up like that already. So some aren't, though. And it just depends. So when I talk to CEOs and businesses, they may or may not get that. And like we were talking with Lene, they may be of an old style where it's more of a dictatorship, right? Like it's not a conscious leadership. So I teach the three of those and combine them together, obviously using Neville principles. But this is the workshop that I'm doing is like a miniature version of a 3-day workshop that I do anyway.
Okay.
Nice.
Which teaches creativity, consciousness, and leadership, right? So I'm bringing all three of these things together, kind of a summary, and I'm throwing in the underpinning things for the people that are there, because I always use Neville, no matter who I'm talking to, because that's what I use, right? Because it's me, and I'm radiating out. So for those who attend your creativity. This is what it does for you. This is what happens when you use imagination. This is what imagination really is, right? So to a CEO who is unconscious, I bring a lot of that into them. I'm not going to try to convince them to do different things, to convert over to Neville or any other thing, right? But I'm going to tell them from my experience, which is what they're hiring me for, what works. Yeah. So those are the three elements that I like to bring into any conversation. So it's leadership. And once again, that's self-leadership, because really everything is you pushed out, honestly, right? So you're radiating all the time. Consciousness is the only reality. So what you're conscious of, your awareness. So that's how it works. Because when you get into bigger organizations with using, right? People get confused. So if you're trying to lead a leadership team, say you love recycling, right? And you've got a community group that does recycling. How do you lead that team, right? So there's a cooperative component, but at the same time, you have to understand it's you rating. It gets really confusing for people to, even in big business, you want everybody's input, but you have to realize the leadership piece, the you setting the tone is the most important part. You set the culture about that. You do bring in other things, but realize that's you being reflected back to you. You know what I mean? So it does get confusing. So I wanted to help people kind of see that. It's a really short time frame to teach all those things. So I'm gonna do my best to do it in the session that we have. I think it's going to be about 45 minutes, and then we get questions and answers afterwards.
That's right.
And then, like I said,
you're going to be on which is your slot on the schedule? I think it's Saturday or Sunday.
Sunday at 12:15.
Okay. Yeah. I think you're just before our. I think you come on just before us.
Yeah, he does.
Cool.
Just before us.
That'll be awesome. So yeah, the whole summit's going to be a whole lot of fun. I hope people do sign up for it. The price point is so cheap. Even if you only go to one or two of the sessions that really sound interesting to you, it's well worth it, especially if you get the recordings where later on. And I'm telling you, once you get into Neville, like Michelle was saying, once you get into it, it'll start compounding, and pretty soon that's all you're going to need.
That's right.
In my experience, it moved so fast. Once I really started weeding out other things, it's kind of like anything. It's, as long as you let other things influence you, you're not going to have some direct focus that you're going to need to get to the next level of whatever you're trying to get to. So, that's my thing. We're going to be talking about creativity a lot, which Neville would say imagination. I'm going to be talking about how you use your imagination. We're going to be talking about consciousness in general, which consciousness is the only reality. You are God. And that's going to shock some people that aren't Neville, perhaps. So it certainly shocks CEOs and things like that. When I talk to them a lot, they don't want to go that far with it. The funny thing is, if you listen to Neville, I love when he skirts that issue too. Like it's so interesting to me that sometimes he'll say, imagination is God. And your imagination, you know what I mean? Like he wants people to put it together for themselves without him, looking like he's dictating.
Yeah.
So, and that's the same thing I do in my coaching. Like I said, I won't come outright and say, you are God, you know what I mean? It's your power and everything is you pushed out. I don't say that to everybody, but for people who's got the right conscious base, right? That's got some entry level into Neville. I think that's going to be your saving grace in the end, honestly, when you start getting that deep into it and buying Pearl.
Absolutely, and people can come and join us at the Neville Summit and choose whether or not they wish to buy the Pearl.
Absolutely, I do suggest, once again, buy the recording, because later on you'll want it.
Yeah,
you will want it. So
Sure, because they can go over it and over it. And the thing with this is that it's so quick, people don't want to miss something.
Yeah.
And how it resonates is where you're saying imagination is God, is that's such a bold statement, and that's something that people can really actually get their teeth into and dive so much deeper, thinking imagination is God. When I first heard that, I thought, oh God, like you, another Bible basher. I'm not, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
But when people actually realize imagination is God, then it's, I can't wait to see people's their aha moments, seeing them awaken and come to life.
It's funny because depending on the path, and a lot of people came through The Secret, Abraham Hicks, that type of path. Path. Most people there get to the point where they take God out of it because it triggers so much religion, right? So they say universe then. Yeah. So they're saying the same thing, but as we know, words have no power. They mean the same thing. They just don't want to trigger themselves back into a religious connotation, right? So when you bring it back and they're like, you're God, or imagination is God, it's kind of shocking because, you may have spent 2 or 3 years in the law of attraction getting away from that, trying to distance yourself from those, the Bible and God. And now here you are right back in it,
And that's kind of
context though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people, they're going to take us all kinds of ways, but we had on, we just released it, was Jerica Charisma Glasper. So that's a perfect example of somebody, because her entire life is in the church, and she found, that what resonated with Neville and how that was a huge transformation for her.
Yeah, I watched that. That was a good interview. I love how, was it her father who was a pastor actually?
I think so, yeah.
So he literally grew up.
She was brought up by a family of siblings that all of them uncles, cousins, pastors, preachers.
Right.
Massively church orientated.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great, I think she's going to help a lot of people who are in similar situations, for sure. For me personally, luckily my parents were pretty open. I mean, even though they're Christian and I was baptized into a Christian organization, but literally by 11 or 12 years old, I was studying so many other religions and, philosophies. They knew, you know what I mean? That's the mentality that I was bringing in Osho and Rumi into the conversation at church and everything. You probably don't have to go to church today if you don't want to,
But see, that's the other thing that's very interesting, because also I've spent 30 years in Hinduism, studying other forms of, technically, Neville's work comes under the heading of what's called non-dualism, meaning there is no secondary cause. You're it. You are the operant power. But you with deities and different areas of expression. But the thing that's interesting is I'll notice in the law of attraction Neville Goddard group, sometimes people kind of are looking around the edges and they're coming out of, or they're within Buddhist, they've been practicing Buddhism or they've been practicing something else. And it's very interesting because now they're looking at Neville and they're trying to see how this all maybe fits together. But it does, and it fits beautifully. Yeah. It was a missing piece. So where can people find you, Tony, when they're when they're Googling? We'll have that on, we'll add that, but where should they contact you?
Sure, absolutely. So right now, if you're trying to find me, NevilleGoddardSummit.com. Find me there. Okay. Right? Find us all there. I'm this is the only program I'm pushing right now. Like, I'm not signing up anybody for anything else except for the Neville Summit, because I feel like it's a good basis for things that the entire summit does so much more work than what I could do personally, right? Sure. But other than that, TonyDoyleInspires.com. You can find all 7 businesses there. If you want personal coaching. You can sign up for those things. Links to YouTube, the 2 podcasts I run, all kinds of different things are on that. So it's TonyDoyleInspires.com. That's the best way. Like I said, no reason to go to social media unless you just love it. I'm on all those socials as well, but the website has all of that. So go there and you can find me for sure.
Thank you for today, Tony. It's been a pleasure having you as a guest.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I love your show.
Thank you.
So you can find us at 2 Comma Coffee Club on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. But we don't want you to visit any of those, and neither does Tony want you to visit TonyDoyleInspires.com until you've gone to NevilleGoddardSummit.com and bought your ticket. Go now.
It's cheap, guys. It's worth it. I'm telling you.
You bet. Come back and see us again, Tony. We'd love to have you back.
Absolutely. I'll see you guys on the summit.
Thanks, Tony.
See you soon.
Thanks, ladies. Bye.
Bye.